Welcome to the Write Publish Market podcast. If you're a business owner thinking a book would be a great marketing asset for your business, you're in the right place. Maybe you've already committed, even better. I'm your host, Jodi Brandon, book publishing strategist and partner for business owners, CEOs, and entrepreneurs, and 20-plus year veteran of the book publishing industry. On the Write Publish Market podcast, in addition to learning from me and other industry experts, you'll hear from other business owners about their experiences as we explore all facets of writing, publishing, and marketing a book that will help your business grow in ways you might not even be dreaming of yet. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Today, we are being joined by Rebecca Stanisic, a writer, speaker, and content strategist. Rebecca helps busy small business owners and solopreneurs create intentional content by focusing on clear messaging, goals, and planning with less stress. She's been writing on her parenting blog, A Little Bit of Mom Sense, since 2009. She's the proud mom of two, and she is fueled by fiction and coffee. Welcome, Rebecca. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So listeners heard your formal introduction, but let me hear just the real quick in your own words, who you are, what you do, who you serve, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. I help solopreneurs and small business owners create intentional content with less stress by focusing on messaging, goals, and long-form content. So blogs, newsletters, podcasts, things that are beyond social media. So yes, we do social media and we use that long form for social, but I really focus on that intentional. I simplify it. We're trying to stress less about it. There's a lot going on and we can't do everything. So I try to help people think about content differently.
Love that. Less stress, I feel like appeals pretty much across the board these days.
Yes, much needed.
Yeah. Okay, well, you answered my first question, was just sort of to define long form content so we're all sort of on the same page, because I know some people might think of it differently. I would love to dig into, because you said you do deal with the social media stuff, but we're so, I think, focused on those quick hits, social media, all that stuff today. Let's talk about the value of longer form content, especially for business owners.
Sure. I consider long form content to be anything that's an anchor. So it's the point of view, the concept, the longer version of details of your thoughts, your expertise, the service you provide, or, even for like a product-based business, the long form content can just be in support of or adjacent to what they're actually selling. So it anchors all of your content creation itself, and then you can pull micro content or supportive content from it. So I say that just because I talk about newsletters and blogs and podcasts primarily, but it could also be YouTube videos. It could be, there's times where I consider long form content to be your about page on your website. So when we're looking at content as a whole, I think we think about content from what I'm creating and sharing and amplifying, which yes, but there's also more pieces, because we don't always think about amplifying the content on our website in that way, but it's still so important because it ties in your goals, your brand messaging, all the things we need. So there's that piece. The value for a small business owner or a solopreneur or any business really is multifold in that, again, because it's an anchor piece, it gives you the opportunity to create quick pieces more efficiently. So instead of sitting and staring at the screen thinking, what am I going to post on Instagram today? Or how am I planning out my social post for the month, even however you batch or don't batch your content,
right? Your
long form content is going to provide that solution. So if you already have a post that has, 5 different highlights, 5 thoughts, or an expanded thought of a niche thing that you talk about, your point of view, then you're going to be able to pull from that quicker and continue that conversation on social. I think a lot of the times we do the reverse. We post on social and then think, oh, it's gone so quickly.
Yes.
So it's longer. Like I said, it's that anchor. So it lasts longer. Of course, it's searchable. SEO and search generative, all of that is important. So it provides that as well. But it works as this entire system for you. So content can't just be your Instagram. It's got to be multiple pieces.
Yeah, I love that. I think that mindset shift, as a business owner, for me, that was such a change. I felt like, I can finally relax my shoulders when I stopped thinking about it. Oh, what am I going to post today? But instead thinking about for me, it's my podcast. It used to be a blog, but now it's the podcast as sort of like the hub. And then like all of the other things like coming off of it. And like, yeah, like they can be reused, used in different ways, recycled, upcycled, like all the different things. And now I feel like, I'm honestly having a conversation right now with my team about, should we stretch out instead of doing a podcast episode every week, should we switch it? Because there's so much to talk about and share from each episode that I feel like I can't keep up with like all the content, which obviously is an embarrassment of riches and a good problem to have as a business owner, right?
And in general, I think we always have a lot of content. You're a business owner, you're creating constantly, just even with your clients, having a meeting creates content that you could turn into content anyway. The solution is there. If you think about those pieces as, how is this going to serve my audience? What journey are they going on with me? And then how is it going to serve my goals and what I'm doing? Well, then it changes that as well. So then you start to rethink about it a bit differently. And I think that's important. I think that's really important to do. And it also gives you the chance to stop creating so much or feel like you're in this constant churn of creation.
Yes.
I think we create too much content. And I say that with a caveat because for some people, showing up daily on a live stream or a reel, that's their content plan. And it works great and it grows fast. And I love that. I love that for people who can and want to do it. For a lot of us, we just can't. We don't have the team. We don't have the desire. It's harder. Yeah. There's friction in doing it. So when we create, we create this piece, right? We'll record a podcast episode. We'll share it. We might mention it. And then we move on. Instead of reflecting on, well, what is this episode doing for me and my goals? Like, what is the next step? Where else can I use it? Where can I pitch this episode? How can I use this as a proof of concept that I have in my expertise?
Yeah.
There's more we can do. And that's why I love long form, is because it just gives us that potential to do so much wider.
Yes. Well, I love thinking about too, like when I do a podcast episode, like this episode on long form content, how can I then talk about it in a way that meets my end goals, right? Like thinking about it in almost like a bigger way, I think.
Yeah. And I think
like multi-level maybe.
And that's it. It is that multi, right? And if you think about it like as a total system, like content all ties together like a big spider web. Content's a big spider web. And so you can make it as big or as little as you want, but it's going, and we're in, a lot of people talk about omni-channel right now, right? We're in a stage where you can't just be on one platform, even if you're not posting new content constantly, in search and everything, those links matter to be in multiple places, but it means use your anchor content, use your long form content to help create the LinkedIn post, the Instagram reel in an easier way that saves you time without having to, everything becomes new. And that's a path to burnout for most of us.
Yes.
Unless we can outsource and build a bigger team, which is great. But a lot of people that I work with, a lot of my clients just aren't prepared to or can't yet. Yeah. And maybe their goal is to grow that way. Some people, it's not their goal. They
don't want to.
They just want to stay themselves. So they just need to make it work with the tools and connection that they have. So we try to make it easier that way. And really it becomes about prioritizing.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that intangible piece of the, like less stress and working within your own capacity, whatever that looks like, because it's different for every one of us, right? Everybody's got their own situation. Yeah.
And we have to stop pretending that it's all the same, right? Yeah. Yes, I get that the templates and the journeys and the roadmaps that everyone has, can work or be a guide, but we're all going down a different path and we all have different needs depending on the stage of life we're in. If we're caregivers for, parents, for family, for children, if we're doing this on the side of a career or a different business or a different job, like all of those things. So finding the capacity that you have and then doing it. That's why, again, if you just spend the time on long form, then you can build it from there, right? So let's take this podcast episode as an example. So it's long form content. You're going to share it on social. So that's easy. It's like at least you have one post, one something you'll have to speak, if nothing else. But you could share a clip or just a summary. You can share an element. So we're going to talk for 20, 30 minutes And there might be something that sparks for your clients that you're going to be like, that's the piece that they're going to take away from this episode. And you also talk about it because when you're talking about positioning and expertise and the benefits of writing that book, as again, that's an anchor piece of anchor marketing asset.
Sure.
You can talk about how that ties in. You might have a one-on-one call in the future, and this episode is relevant to something they're saying, or they can't see the connection between starting a blog and selling their book. So you can make that connection by sending this post or this episode, right? So it does so much of that work and we forget about it because then we're always thinking, well, what's new and next?
What's next? Yes. Yeah. That's the piece that I personally work on all the time is getting out of that like hamster wheel of like, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Well, and let's be honest, when I post on Instagram, I get likes and I get comments and I might get DMs and it's great. And I still sell on Instagram. Like it's still a place where my audience is. I'm on there so little now, though. It's funny, right? So when I show up, I know that it's intentional and I know it's with meaning, but I can't help in that moment but feel like, oh, maybe I should do this more because that felt good.
Yeah.
Right?
That hits.
A blog post doesn't give instant gratification. A newsletter, they'll get it. But if you don't get a reply to your newsletter, it doesn't feel the same connection.
Right.
So finding ways to build that community, and this is why multiple channels works, is my communities on Instagram where I can go chat with them and get really firsthand, or I go offline, right? We forget to take ourselves offline and then connect that way. But then I'm also doing the podcast and the newsletter and all these other things to expand it.
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's talk about, so like, I love that like practical, those practical pieces. Let's talk about some of those like intangible benefits that business owners that we're looking for, especially like with our messaging, right? That long form content can provide, like the thought leadership, the authority, all of those kinds of things. Like how do you explain to your clients how that works? I mean, we all know the benefit of those things, but
right. You can go, there's SEO and there's that tangible, like you said, there's absolutely that benefit, beyond that thought leadership and that positioning of expertise and point of view. I think we forget in the world of AI, we need to stand out as humans, and those positionings, that point of view. I will not make this episode about my thoughts on AI. Generative AI is not where I'm at or what I use. And I recognize I'm using AI in other places, probably when I do captions or something. So I recognize that, but not to write. I don't use it to create. Not what I do. But, when we're being told constantly, well, just write your blog post with chat, just do all this and make it save your time. I tell my clients, if that's going to help them get over the roadblock, they need to do what's best for them. Absolutely. And I don't judge or criticize anyone who's going to use it to help them figure out their next step.
Yeah.
Some people need to. Absolutely. But for ourselves, if our role or our growth in our business is expertise, positioning, thought leadership, and that is my case, I need to position myself as someone to work with on content that versus AI, then those points of views, those statements, that matters. So long form content can let people dive deeper into that and explain it more. I think that's why, podcasts are great for some of us because, and I'm a writer first, and yet I do my podcast more than I blog right now on the business side of things because my audience can consume it and connect with me in a different way.
Yes.
And an easier way, or, I can go deeper into the conversation. So it's finding that, you forget that we need to position ourselves as humans, but also that expertise, that point of view, that's what's going to sell our service or build our audience for, whatever it is that we're doing. So that's part of it, I think, is that thought leadership. We can't forget that.
Yeah. I had a hunch that we shared similar feelings about generative AI. And we do.
It's a hard statement about it, but kind of because I recognize the use of it as tool, as a support, as an assistant. But I also write, like I'm a fiction writer. I do that for fun. I haven't sold. I don't do any of that. I'm trying to grow that side, but I can't imagine. I don't want to read AI. I don't want any of that. So think about that human connection.
Yes.
I think that still matters. It still is important, and it differentiates us.
Hey there, business owner, an aspiring or published author. Sorry to interrupt this episode. Just wanted to check in and see if you're subscribed to Coffee and Commas, my email newsletter, where I share behind the scenes, industry info, and much more about writing, publishing, and marketing a book for your business. Sign up at bit.ly/coffee and commas sign up. That's all lowercase. Now back to the show. Yeah. I think it's especially important in those industries like yours and mine, where we're talking about, words and content, and people at the end of the day to hire one of us for our services, it's going to be blatantly clear so quickly if we're not generating our content ourselves, I think. And I mean, and then it's just,
the voice is gone. And yes, I get it. You can make every prompt possible to make it better. I'm told this happens. Fine. But for me, it won't understand the connection. So if I have a client come to me and they're thinking about, starting a podcast, and this is the topic they want to do it on because that's going to be their anchor content, they may not know that I already know of someone who's in that same field that has some really great examples, or, that had a path that could help them, or because that's just the human collaborative connecting.
It's the piece that doesn't have
experience.
It's the
right. So I think we can't discount that, and we can't forget that it's that positioning that really matters. It's when people are in a room and they say, I'm really thinking about starting a blog. I want people to be saying my name. Talk to Rebecca. She'll help you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's the missing piece for sure. No matter what prompts people put in.
It's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to be used.
Absolutely. And, yes.
There's lots of ways it's beneficial. The medical community, wherever it needs to be. Right. But standing out and figuring out what our unique proposition is, our unique take, our unique service, and how we're going to help, that's going to make a difference, I think.
Yeah.
I stand by that still. I haven't a couple of years now where everyone asks me about it, and I'm like, no, I still feel, and my business has only been growing. I connect with new customers, clients, and, because they're looking for a particular type of help.
Yeah. I say it. AI has its place for sure, but I'm very particular about what that place is. Yeah. I'm with you though. I constantly have people saying like, oh, have you changed your stance? Like, have you softened your stance? Have you? And no, I'm holding the line, Rebecca. And I'm glad to see I'm in good company. So let's talk about a few ways that people can sort of, start positioning themselves better. The first time that we connected on a coffee chat, I remember you talking specifically about a media page on your website. And I was like, oh, I've got to talk more to her about this, about using your media page as its own sort of container versus just, sort of sprinkling those as seen in things around. So I would love to talk a little bit more about that, but then any other, sort of quick tips you have for listeners.
Yeah. And I always love talking about this media page because every presentation I give, when I mention it, you can see people almost a light bulb moment, in which I love. Like I like when I give away things that people walk away and can do. Right? That's always my thing, is taking action. We can strategize and do all that, but if you don't take action, there's no change. So this is the action piece. Yes. A media page, you could call it a speaker page, a media page, whatever you call it. I like to use media in the headline because it's often identifiable. It makes it clear what it is. My media page. So I have two websites. The RebeccaStanisic.com is kind of my content work. It's a newer page. It does not do much. It just is my landing page, basically. Because I've been doing this for 16 years, I started as a parent blogger. So my Bit of Mom Sense page was my home base for so long. It was my anchor for the longest time. Even when I was freelancing and starting speaking and starting content work, I just sent everyone to that page still, because my capacity was not to run multiple pages at the time. As it's grown,
fair enough.
I recognize Rebecca Stanisic needed to be its own thing. So I did that. But both pages have a media page. And the intention is that that's where my freelance writing links are. I've done live TV, I've done news. I have now a podcast page on the Rebecca Stanisic site with a playlist from guest episodes that I've been on. So people can see that not only do I have my own podcast, but I also am a guest and am experienced with that. Because then what it does is it helps remind people that one, someone else thinks I'm an expert in something because they've invited me to be on TV or write about this or, be on a podcast. So we have to kind of, and I'm bad for this too. So we have to kind of get over the worry about this bragging or, telling people we do this.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to tell people that we are experts in what we do or that and I'm learning constantly. And I don't even use expert as much as, a thought leader maybe might be my preferred word just because my own things. But it reminds people that we can do that and it proves that we can. So when you have a media page and it's with your guests, so everyone shares on social, of course. I was a guest here. I wrote this article.
Sure.
And then we leave it and we don't anchor it anywhere. So put it on that one stop. It doesn't have to even, you can make it look pretty. That would be great. Mine's just a list of links with, a lot of experience, not even everything after all these years, but it gives people that identification that, this person knows what they're talking about. And they've talked about it on multiple publications and multiple podcasts or live TV. And then when you get invited to speak or when you're applying to speak. So I apply a lot of places. I apply to speak on stage. I apply to speak at workshops. I apply to speak for a podcast. I like to take action. Yes, I would love it if everyone just invites me. That would just be cool. But I recognize that I need to apply. So I do. And I have these links that I'm able to send with examples.
Yeah.
And so it builds this type of resume in that place that we want to be known for. So when we're building up thought leadership and building up positioning, a media page will help us do that. And that's what I love for it.
Yeah, it's so smart. It's so smart. And giving people those actual examples of your work in action, I think it's such an easy way to start to develop that know, like, trust factor with somebody and start a relationship, which is what's going to ultimately get you, sales, selling your services, which is why we're all in business in the first place, right? So.
And I think too, it's why when you go to someone's website, they show, the banner at the bottom with as seen in.
Yeah.
All the different morning shows and all the different publications, because it gives that authority and that credibility. And so it does matter, right? Again, it proves our humanity. It shows that connection that we have. So there's definitely ways of doing it. And if you don't, so the question, somebody's listening to this going, but I haven't done any media yet, or I haven't been a guest yet. Then if that's what you want, and I highly recommend, especially for people who are positioning themselves as thought leaders, as the go-to person with expertise, that becomes your next content strategy. So, set aside some time to pitch some podcasts. Even it doesn't matter if it's your friend who has a podcast, get that experience speaking on a podcast, answering questions, figuring out what that looks like, practicing, and then having that link to be able to provide that proof that you can do it. Pitch for articles, guest blog posts on other complementary business sites. Even if I love to be paid, I'm a freelance writer. So yes, I believe in being paid for that. But in the beginning, when I was building my business, it was, guest posting and I wasn't always paid. And that's just, but it was strategic free. I was doing it strategically.
Right.
I knew why and where and how often. It wasn't all my time. But think about what that plan is to build your media page for yourself. What can that look like?
Yeah.
And it might be local, look at your local newspaper, look at your local TV, your local area, and that's where you can start to get in.
Yeah. I could not agree with that advice more. That's super, super smart. I'm sure that I had the same look of the light bulb going off when you were talking about it, because I definitely have everything like all over the place instead of one spot. But I 100% see the value in like what you're saying, like, and it makes perfect sense. So now it's on the list. Now it's on the list for the website updates. So
that's good. And it's one of those things, again, where we prioritize, right? So we have 6 hours in a week where we can spend marketing, because for those of us, especially service providers, let's be honest. I mean, 90% of my time is doing the thing that I've been paid to do. I have to deliver something. I'm either delivering content pieces or the freelance writing article, or I'm attending events to deliver the thing.
Yeah.
There's only so much time to do the lead generation and the building of the customer base. And I recognize that. So when we have 6 hours, it's tempting and easy to spend it on, let's say, social. And there might be value in that. If I was getting most of my clients that way, then sure, I'd spend more time there. I'm not getting most that way. I get some, so I get the time appropriately. But 2 of those hours or 3 of those hours are spent filling out applications, sending emails. I will send an email that is just, can I connect with you? Like, I have an idea. I'm very cold in my emails sometimes. And just, but there's a relationship usually first.
Right.
So it's strategically, where are you prioritizing that time strategically with intention? Again, going back to what's meeting your goals. My goal is to get on more podcasts. That's going to be a very different approach than my goal is to get more people on my newsletter this month instantly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that almost every single question I've asked you, the answer has involved the words strategy and anchor. Like it's very clear. It's very clear, even if you're not paying close attention, that those are the big pieces like that people should be paying attention to with their long form content. And that's, I think that's super valuable. Like that it doesn't have to be this big, overcomplicated anything. It really is that simple.
I'm glad to hear that. That's very good. So my messaging is working well. I like it.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I want people to remember is when we create these foundations, then the scaling and the ramping up of the other stuff, the creative stuff, the room to do the cool videos or the fun videos, or even just to connect in a different creative way, it opens up because the foundations are there. And so we're not just, trying to piece together something that doesn't make sense or isn't, we're 4 puzzles in trying to piece it into one. It doesn't work. They will not match. Right. We have to build the one puzzle and then we can build out more. Yeah. And so I think that is where, especially solopreneurs, small business owners who don't have a team or can't outsource. When you can outsource, as someone else, and I have very few, but I have some monthly retainer clients that I do that for. Mm-hmm. Of course, like when someone else is just the person producing the social content and you don't have to think about it, it opens up space, but not everyone can do that yet.
Yeah.
So if it's just you, then, or you can outsource pieces of it at times. Again, you still need to know the priority. You still need to know what your goals are and how you're strategically using it, because that will just save you time and open up that space. You need that creative space.
Yeah. But again, it's that human piece, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I can plug a bunch of stuff into AI and it can tell me these are what my goals should be or whatever, but maybe what it's telling me to do to get there isn't what feels right to me, or where I want to spend my time or how I want to spend my time. So I think it's how it all comes together is what people really should be paying attention to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was a fun conversation. And we could talk about AI, the AI piece in general all day long. I think the two of us could have quite a fun conversation about that. Before I let you go though, Rebecca, I need a reading recommendation. I ask everyone for a reading recommendation. So it could be something you're reading now that you like or hate, or something you read recently that you recommend.
Well, I won't give a specific, because I'll just say in general, when I am not working and when I am reading, because I read a lot of fiction, it's always something with romance in it. So I think I have 3 on the go right now, depending on the mood I'm in, because I have a romantasy on the go, and then I usually have a contemporary on the go.
Okay. Is that what you write also? The fiction that you write? Same thing? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to reading your fiction one day.
All the love that I could take. I love it.
I love it.
Yeah, that's where I like it.
I've been reading more fiction this year than I have in the last couple of years. And I go through, phases, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit right now. So where, Rebecca, is the best place for listeners to connect with you if they want to do so? We have all of your links in the show notes, but where's the best place? It sounds like not Instagram, because you don't spend a ton of time there.
It's funny. Instagram is actually the best place to connect, because because if I only have 15 minutes in a day, the first place I'll go is my DM.
That's where you're going.
So I will always chat. You send me a message, and often people will, listen or watch a workshop of mine and then send a message. I'm always happy to further answer questions or just even chat. That's where I'm at. That's where I communicate the most. Chatting.
Okay.
But to kind of, learn more about what I do, or even I have a lot of free resources, including my newsletter. The website, RebeccaStanisic.com, will have links to all of that. as well. So, and my podcast. So,
yeah, good podcast is fantastic if you haven't listened to it. So, thank you. This was such a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Right Publish Market podcast. I know just how busy business owners and CEOs' schedules are, and I'm grateful you've taken some time out of yours to spend with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, take a quick screenshot and share it on social to let others know you're listening. Use the hashtag RightPublishMarket to spread the love.